What if I told you that buried deep within your brain lies a crystalline gateway, a biological stargate that ancient mystics called the seat of the soul? A tiny pine cone-shaped gland that both modern science and esoteric traditions agree holds powers far beyond what we've been taught? The pineal gland. For thousands of years, it has been whispered about in the mystery schools of Egypt, encoded in the sacred geometry of Gothic cathedrals, and symbolized in the staff of Osiris. Descartes called it the principal seat of the soul. The Buddha's urna, that mystical third eye, points directly to it. Even the Vatican, in a courtyard few are allowed to enter, displays a massive bronze pine cone sculpture, standing over 13 feet tall, as if guarding a secret they dare not speak aloud. But here's what they don't want you to know. This gland is not just a vestigial remnant of our evolutionary past. It's not merely an endocrine organ that regulates sleep. No, the pineal gland is a dormant technology, a biocrystalline antenna that, when activated, can pierce the veil between the physical and the metaphysical, between the mundane and the transcendent. You've been walking around with a stargate in your skull, and no one told you how to open it. In this revelation, we're going to explore why this knowledge has been suppressed, hidden in plain sight, yet obscured by layers of deliberate misdirection. We'll journey through ancient temples and modern laboratories, decode symbols that have stared at us from currency and architecture for centuries, and most importantly, I'm going to show you how to activate this dormant portal within yourself. Because once you understand what the pineal gland truly is, once you grasp the forbidden knowledge that surrounds it, your perception of reality will never be the same. The ancients knew this. The mystics practiced it. And now it's your turn to remember what you've always known but have been conditioned to forget. Are you ready to see what lies beyond the veil? Long before modern neuroscience mapped the brain, long before MRI machines could peer into the depths of our skull, the ancient seers knew. They knew with a certainty that transcended the need for scientific validation. From the banks of the Nile to the peaks of the Himalayas, from the pyramids of Egypt to the temples of Mesoamerica, every great civilization that touched the mysteries left behind the same cryptic message. There is an eye that sees beyond sight, a gland that perceives beyond perception. The ancient Egyptians called it the Eye of Horus, that iconic symbol you've seen 1,000 times without understanding its true significance. It wasn't mere mythology. The Eye of Horus, when overlaid on a sagittal cross-section of the human brain, matches with stunning anatomical precision to the thalamus, the corpus callosum, and yes, the pineal gland itself. They knew. They mapped consciousness onto biology millennia before we had the tools to do the same. In the mystery schools of Egypt, initiates underwent rigorous trials not to gain knowledge, but to remember it. The pineal gland was considered the bridge between the mortal and the divine, the physical anchor point for the Ka, the vital essence that connected the earthly body to the celestial realms. Priests would undergo elaborate rituals, fasting, meditation, and specific breathwork techniques designed to decalcify and activate this sacred gland. Why? Because they understood that human perception is not fixed. It's a spectrum, and the pineal gland is the tuning fork. Move eastward to India, and you'll find the concept of the Ajna chakra, the third eye center, positioned precisely where the pineal gland resides. The Sanskrit texts describe it as the command center of intuition, the doorway to higher consciousness, the seat of inner vision. When yogis speak of awakening the third eye, they're not speaking metaphorically. They're describing a literal physiological and energetic transformation centered on this mysterious gland. René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, was obsessed with the pineal gland. In his Treatise of Man, he proposed something radical for his time, that the pineal gland was the principal seat of the soul and the point of interaction between the immaterial mind and the material body. He was mocked, dismissed, relegated to the footnotes of history on this particular insight. But Descartes was onto something. He understood that this gland, uniquely positioned in the geometric center of the brain, unpaired unlike almost every other brain structure, held a singular importance. But here's where the suppression begins. Here's where the veil descends. As materialist science rose to dominance in the 18th and 19th centuries, the pineal gland was systematically demystified, reduced, stripped of its sacred significance. It became just an endocrine gland, just a producer of melatonin, just a regulator of circadian rhythms. The mystical was made mundane, the sacred was made profane, and an entire dimension of human potential was locked away, hidden behind the cold language of reductionist biology. Why? Because activated pineal glands produce awakened humans. And awakened humans are difficult to control, difficult to manipulate, difficult to keep docile within systems that require unconsciousness to function. The knowledge didn't disappear, it went underground. Into the secret societies, into the symbols carved into cathedrals, into the art of the Renaissance masters who encoded alchemical truths in plain sight. The pine cone appears again and again, in the hands of Dionysus as his thyrsus staff, atop the papal staff of the Vatican, in the court of the pine cone in Vatican City itself, a massive bronze sculpture surrounded by sacred geometry, guarded by Egyptian lions, as if protecting a secret too powerful to speak. They know. They've always known. And now you're about to remember. Let's descend now into the anatomy of mystery itself. Let's explore what this tiny rice grain-sized gland actually is, and why its structure reads like a blueprint for interdimensional communication. The pineal gland sits in the exact geometric center of your brain, nestled between the two hemispheres, floating in cerebrospinal fluid like a jewel suspended in sacred water. This positioning is not accidental. In sacred geometry, the center point is the axis mundi, the world axis, the point where heaven and earth meet, where the material and immaterial intersect. Your pineal gland occupies this exact position within the architecture of your consciousness. Now here's where it gets extraordinary. The pineal gland contains crystalline structures. Yes, you read that correctly. Crystals in your brain. These are called corpora arenacea, or brain sand in scientific literature. But let's call them what the ancients would have called them, piezoelectric calcite crystals. These microcrystals are structurally similar to the crystals used in radio receivers and telecommunications technology. They respond to electromagnetic frequencies. They resonate. They transduce signals. Think about that for a moment. You have biological crystals in your brain that function as antennas. Crystals that can receive and transmit frequencies beyond the normal range of human perception. But it gets stranger. The pineal gland contains photoreceptor cells, the same type of cells found in your retinas. It's literally a third eye that sees, but not the way your physical eyes see. It perceives light that doesn't enter through your pupils. Some researchers believe it can detect electromagnetic fields, subtle energies, and frequencies that exist outside the visible spectrum. The ancient yogis called this divine vision, the ability to perceive the subtle energy fields that animate reality itself. The pineal gland also produces DMT, dimethyltryptamine, one of the most powerful psychoactive compounds known to humanity. DMT is the molecule of mystical experience, the chemical doorway to what many describe as hyperspace, or alternate dimensions of consciousness. Rick Strassman's groundbreaking research suggested that the pineal gland may release DMT during birth, death, and possibly during deep meditation or near-death experiences. This isn't recreational chemistry. This is the neurological hardware for transcendent experience, built into your biology by design. Now let's talk about what's happening to this gland in the modern world, because this is where the tragedy unfolds. Your pineal gland is calcifying. Right now, as you listen to these words, microscopic deposits of calcium are likely accumulating on this sacred gland, hardening it, dimming its light, reducing its function. Studies show that by adulthood, the majority of human pineal glands show significant calcification. It becomes a hardened, crystallized mass, but not the right kind of crystals. These are dead crystals, blockages, static in the antenna. What causes this calcification? The list reads like a deliberate program of suppression: fluoride in tap water and toothpaste, calcium supplements without proper cofactors, processed foods, electromagnetic pollution, lack of sunlight exposure, chronic stress, and perhaps most significantly, disconnection from natural circadian rhythms and spiritual practice. Fluoride deserves special attention here. Fluoride accumulates in the pineal gland more than any other organ in the body, even more than bones or teeth. Research from the 1990s confirmed this. Fluoride calcifies the pineal, hardens it, reduces its function, and yet fluoride is added to public water supplies under the guise of dental health. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps there are those who understand exactly what they're doing when they introduce calcifying agents into the water supply of entire populations. A calcified pineal gland means diminished melatonin production, disrupted sleep cycles, reduced dream recall, and, most critically, a dampened connection to intuition, spiritual insight, and higher consciousness. It means living in a narrower bandwidth of reality, perceiving only the densest frequencies, locked into purely material consciousness. But here's the secret they don't want you to discover. Calcification is reversible. The pineal gland can be decalcified, reactivated, awakened. The dormant antenna can be tuned back to operational frequencies. The third eye can be opened once again. And when it opens, reality itself transforms. Because you're not just changing a gland, you're expanding the entire spectrum of what you can perceive, experience, and become. Core Explanation, Part 2. Now we venture deeper into the paradox, into the territory where science and mysticism become indistinguishable, where the map of consciousness reveals territories that mainstream academia refuses to acknowledge. Let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the dimension outside the room. When spiritual traditions speak of activating the third eye, or awakening the pineal gland, what are they actually describing? Is it metaphor? Is it biochemistry? Or is it something that transcends both categories entirely? The answer lies in understanding that the pineal gland operates as a transducer, a biological device that converts one form of energy into another. It takes electromagnetic signals, light frequencies, and possibly even quantum information from what we might call the field, and translates them into neurochemical experiences that your brain can process. It's the interface between the non-physical and the physical, the bridge between dimensions of reality that exist simultaneously, but vibrate at different frequencies. Think of your normal waking consciousness as a radio locked onto one station. Let's call it FM 98. 6. The frequency of consensus reality. You perceive matter. Time flows linearly, cause and effect seem solid and predictable. But that's not the only station broadcasting. There are countless other frequencies, other dimensions of information, other layers of reality pulsing all around you, through you, as you. You just can't tune into them because your receiver, your pineal gland, is calcified, damaged, turned off. Ancient mystery schools understood this perfectly. Their initiation rites weren't about belief or faith. They were about activation. Through specific practices, fasting to purify the body, breathwork to alter brainwave states, meditation to quiet the cognitive noise, sacred geometry to entrain consciousness to harmonic frequencies. Initiates would systematically prepare the pineal gland for activation. And when it activated, they didn't just believe in other dimensions, they experienced them directly. This is why psychedelics, particularly those containing DMT, have been used sacramentally in virtually every indigenous shamanic tradition. They're not recreational, they're technological. They temporarily override the calcification, flood the pineal gland with the very substance it's supposed to produce naturally, and force the antenna to receive frequencies it's been blocked from accessing. Users report eerily consistent experiences, encounters with entities, perception of geometric patterns, access to information they couldn't have known, dissolution of the ego boundary, and an overwhelming sense of remembering something they'd forgotten. But here's the critical distinction. External DMT is a shortcut, a temporary override. True mastery comes from learning to produce and regulate these compounds naturally through your own activated pineal gland. This is what the yogis achieved. This is what the Egyptian priests accomplished. This is the real forbidden knowledge, that you don't need external substances, external authorities, or external salvation. The technology is already installed. You just need to remember how to use it. Now let's dismantle some dangerous misconceptions, because the internet is flooded with half-truths and spiritual bypassing around this topic. 1. Just decalcify your pineal gland and you'll become psychic overnight. False. Decalcification is necessary but not sufficient. It's like cleaning a telescope lens. You can see more clearly, but you still need to learn how to observe, how to interpret what you're seeing, how to distinguish signal from noise. Activation without preparation, without ethical grounding, without psychological integration can lead to delusion, paranoia, or spiritual psychosis. Myth 2. The pineal gland is the source of all consciousness. Also false. Consciousness doesn't originate in the brain. The brain is more like a receiver, a reducing valve that filters infinite consciousness into a manageable stream of localized awareness. The pineal gland is a crucial component of that receiver, but it's not the source. You are the source. The infinite awareness behind your eyes, reading these words right now, that's the source. Myth 3. Activating the pineal gland will solve all your problems. Spiritually naive and potentially dangerous. Activation amplifies your consciousness, all of it. Your shadows, your traumas, your unresolved psychological material. Everything gets brighter, louder, more intense. This is why traditional paths always emphasized purification before illumination. You must clear the vessel before you fill it with light, or you risk shattering it entirely. Here's a truth that few speak. There's a reason this knowledge has been kept hidden, encoded, protected behind layers of symbolism and initiation. Not because some sinister cabal wants to control you, though that may be a secondary effect, but because premature activation can be genuinely dangerous. Kundalini psychosis is real. Spiritual emergency is real. The human nervous system must be gradually prepared to handle higher frequencies of consciousness, or it can burn out, fragment, disconnect from consensus reality in ways that are debilitating rather than liberating. The path to activation is not about forcing the gland open through sheer will or aggressive techniques. It's about creating the conditions, physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, for a natural, organic awakening. It's about removing the obstacles rather than forcing the breakthrough. It's about purification, patience, and profound respect for the magnitude of what you're attempting. Because once the door opens, once you begin perceiving the frequencies beyond the veil, there's no going back to unconscious consensus reality. You become responsible for what you see, what you know, what you carry. You become a bridge between worlds, and that's not always comfortable. It's not always blissful. But it is real, and it is your birthright. Now we arrive at the threshold between theory and transformation, between understanding and embodiment. Knowledge without application is merely entertainment. So let's translate ancient wisdom into modern practice, concrete, actionable techniques you can begin implementing today to decalcify, activate, and awaken your pineal gland. But first, a warning. Approach this work with reverence and patience. You're not hacking a computer system. You're awakening dormant sacred technology within your own biology. Respect the process, honor the pace. Your nervous system, your consciousness, your entire being must adapt gradually to expanded perception, or you risk destabilization. Phase 1, purification and decalcification. Before you can activate the antenna, you must clean it. Decalcification is your foundation, and it operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Physical detoxification. Eliminate fluoride completely. Switch to fluoride-free toothpaste. Install a reverse osmosis or distillation water filter. Standard carbon filters don't remove fluoride. Read labels obsessively. Fluoride hides in processed foods, certain teas, non-organic produce sprayed with fluoride-based pesticides, and pharmaceuticals. Reduce calcium supplements unless paired with vitamins K2 and D3, which ensure calcium goes to bones rather than soft tissue. Introduce organic raw apple cider vinegar. 1 tablespoon in water daily helps dissolve calcification. Tamarind, derived from the African tamarind tree, has been shown in studies to mobilize fluoride from bones and facilitate its excretion. Iodine supplementation supports pineal function. The gland requires iodine for optimal performance, and most modern humans are severely deficient. But physical purification is only the beginning. You must also cleanse the energetic and psychological dimensions. Circadian rhythm restoration. Your pineal gland is exquisitely sensitive to light cycles. Modern life, with its artificial lighting, screen exposure, and disrupted sleep patterns, has utterly devastated this natural rhythm. Begin by exposing your eyes to natural sunlight within the first hour of waking. No sunglasses, no windows, direct retinal exposure to morning light. This signals your pineal gland to regulate melatonin production properly. As darkness falls, minimize blue light exposure. Use blue light blocking glasses, switch to warm lighting, eliminate screens 2 hours before sleep. Sleep in complete darkness. Even small amounts of light can disrupt pineal function. Your bedroom should be a cave, a womb, a sanctuary of darkness where the gland can perform its nocturnal alchemy. Fasting and dietary alchemy. The ancient mystics fasted for a reason. Autophagy, the cellular cleanup process triggered by fasting, helps break down and eliminate calcification. Intermittent fasting, where you compress your eating window to 6 to 8 hours daily, creates mild ketosis that supports brain detoxification. Consider periodic water fasts of 24-72 hours, always with proper preparation and ideally under guidance. When you do eat, prioritize foods that support pineal health. Chlorophyll-rich greens that chelate heavy metals, raw cacao rich in antioxidants and mood-elevating compounds, oregano oil and neem extract which possess powerful detoxification properties, and blue-green algae like spirulina and chlorella. Phase 2. Activation practices. With the gland cleansed, you're ready to activate it. These practices awaken the dormant potentials encoded within this mysterious organ. Tratika, the ancient gaze. This yogic technique directly stimulates the pineal gland through sustained focus. Sit comfortably in a dark room. Place a single candle flame at eye level, arm's length away. Gaze at the flame without blinking for as long as possible. Aim for 1-3 minutes initially. When your eyes water or fatigue, close them and visualize the flame's afterimage in the space between your eyebrows, the physical location corresponding to your pineal gland. This practice strengthens concentration while directly energizing the third eye center. Practice daily, gradually extending duration. Pineal gland breathing. This is a modified pranayama technique designed specifically for gland activation. Sit in a comfortable meditation posture. Inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 4, feeling the breath fill your lungs completely. Hold the breath for a count of 7 while directing your attention, your awareness itself, to the center of your brain, to the pineal gland. As you hold, visualize a small sphere of brilliant indigo or violet light pulsing in that location, growing brighter with each heartbeat. Exhale slowly through your nose for a count of 8. Imagining any blockages, calcification, or stagnant energy being expelled with the breath. Repeat for 10-15 minutes daily. This oxygenates the brain, creates specific brainwave states conducive to activation, and focuses bioelectric energy directly on the gland. Sound frequency. Entrainment. The pineal gland responds to specific frequencies. The ancient mystery schools used chanting, tuning forks, and acoustic resonance for activation. Modern practitioners can use binaural beats, particularly those in the theta range, 408 Hz, and delta range, 0.5 to 4 Hz, to entrain brainwaves into states where pineal activation naturally occurs. The frequency of 936 Hz, sometimes called the frequency of the gods or pineal gland activator, has been reported by practitioners to create powerful effects. Listen through headphones during meditation, allowing the frequencies to create resonance within the crystalline structures of the gland itself. Sun gazing, the controversial practice. Used carefully and correctly, sun gazing can powerfully stimulate the pineal gland. Only practice during the safe window, the first 15 minutes after sunrise or the final 15 minutes before sunset, when UV radiation is minimal. Start with just 10 seconds of gazing directly at the sun, increasing by 10 seconds daily. Never exceed 5 to 10 minutes total, and never practice outside the safe windows. The light enters through your retinas and travels along the optic nerve, directly stimulating the pineal gland. Many ancient cultures practiced this, and modern practitioners report enhanced intuition, reduced need for sleep, and spontaneous states of expanded consciousness. However, this practice carries risk if done incorrectly. Proceed with extreme caution and research thoroughly. Phase 3. Integration and protection. Activation without integration leads to fragmentation. As your perception expands, you must develop practices to ground, integrate, and protect your heightened sensitivity. Keep a dream journal by your bedside. As your pineal function improves, your dreams will become more vivid, more symbolic, more prophetic. Record them immediately upon waking. They contain messages from dimensions of consciousness you're learning to access. Develop a daily meditation practice of at least 20 minutes. This isn't optional, it's essential. Meditation trains you to observe expanded states without becoming overwhelmed or attached. Practice grounding techniques. Walk barefoot on earth, work with crystals like black tourmaline or hematite. Visualize roots extending from your tailbone deep into the earth's core. And finally, cultivate discernment. As your perception opens, you'll encounter information, entities, and experiences that consensus reality denies exist. Not everything you perceive will be benevolent. Not every insight will be true. You must develop the capacity to test, question, and verify your experiences against both inner wisdom and outer reality. The goal isn't to become permanently spaced out in mystical realms. It's to become fully embodied, fully present, with access to expanded bandwidth when needed. The path of pineal activation is the path of remembered divinity. You're not gaining something new. You're removing the veils that obscured what was always there. You're not becoming superhuman. You're becoming fully human, activating capacities that have atrophied through millennia of disconnection and generations of conditioning. The door is there. The key is in your hands. All that remains is the choice to turn it. And so we arrive at the end of this revelation, though in truth this is not an ending but a beginning, a threshold, an invitation into a reality far vaster than the one you inhabited before you began this journey. Let's crystallize what we've uncovered. The pineal gland is not merely an endocrine organ producing melatonin. It is a biological stargate, a crystalline transducer positioned in the exact geometric center of your brain, containing the same photoreceptor cells as your eyes, housing piezoelectric crystals that respond to electromagnetic frequencies and producing the most powerful consciousness-expanding molecule known to science. This tiny pine cone-shaped gland has been venerated by every ancient civilization that touched the mysteries, encoded in religious symbolism across cultures and millennia, and systematically suppressed by materialist paradigms that cannot reconcile its implications. You now understand why fluoride saturates public water supplies, why artificial light floods your environment, why modern life systematically disconnects you from natural rhythms and spiritual practice. Whether through deliberate conspiracy or emergent consequence, the effect is identical. A population with calcified pineal glands, limited to narrow bandwidth perception, unable to access the full spectrum of consciousness that is their birthright. But you also now possess the keys to reverse this condition. You know how to decalcify through dietary choices, circadian rhythm restoration, and detoxification protocols. You've learned activation techniques, from ancient practices like trataka and breathwork, to modern approaches using sound frequencies and light exposure. And critically, you understand that activation must be paired with integration, grounding, and ethical development, or you risk destabilization rather than liberation. Here is the profound truth that will either liberate or disturb you, depending on how ready you are to receive it. You are not a body that occasionally has spiritual experiences. You are an infinite consciousness temporarily focused through a biological aperture. The pineal gland is the lens that determines how narrow or how expansive that aperture becomes. When calcified and dormant, you perceive only the densest frequencies: matter, time, separation, limitation. When decalcified and activated, the lens widens, and you begin to perceive what has always been there. The subtle energies that animate form, the interconnected field of consciousness that underlies apparent separation, the timeless dimensions that exist parallel to linear time. The mystics were not speaking in metaphors. The ancient priests were not primitive, superstitious fools. They were sophisticated consciousness engineers who understood human neurobiology and energetic anatomy at levels we're only beginning to rediscover. They built entire civilizations around the cultivation of awakened perception. And then that knowledge went underground, encoded in symbols protected by initiatory barriers, hidden in plain sight yet invisible to those without eyes to see. Until now. Until this moment. Until you. So I leave you with this question, and it's not rhetorical. It's an actual choice point in your consciousness. Will you forget this revelation by tomorrow? Will you let this information become mere entertainment, another interesting video consumed and discarded in the endless scroll of digital distraction? Or will you recognize that you've just been handed a map to territories of your own being you've never explored? Will you begin, today, tonight, right now, to implement even one practice we've discussed? Will you eliminate fluoride from your water? Will you sit in darkness and practice pineal breathing? Will you honor the gift of this sacred gland and commit to its awakening? Because here's what happens when enough individuals activate their pineal glands. Consensus reality itself begins to shift. The frequencies that dominate collective consciousness change. Structures built on unconsciousness and control begin to dissolve. A new paradigm emerges, not through political revolution or technological innovation, but through the quiet internal work of individuals remembering how to perceive beyond the veil. You are not reading this by accident. There are no accidents in a universe of intelligent design and meaningful synchronicity. You were drawn to this information because some part of you, perhaps the still sleeping gland in the center of your brain, is ready to awaken, ready to remember, ready to see what you've been conditioned to ignore. The forbidden knowledge is no longer forbidden. The secrets are being revealed. The veils are thinning, and you stand at the threshold with a choice that will ripple across dimensions you can't yet perceive. What will you do with what you now know? If this revelation has ignited something within you, if you feel the stirring of recognition, of remembering, then leave a comment below sharing which practice you'll begin with. Your declaration creates accountability, and your words may inspire others walking this same path. Subscribe to this channel, because we're just beginning to explore the hidden technologies of consciousness. There are deeper mysteries yet to reveal. And share this video with someone who's ready to awaken, because this information is meant to spread, to proliferate, to find those whose third eyes are ready to open. The ancient mystics are watching. The future is calling. And your pineal gland is waiting. Welcome home, traveler. Welcome to the beginning of true sight.